Thank you for joining us for All Things MSP Live. My name is Eric Anthony. I'll be your host tonight, and we really do appreciate you spending some time with us. Now, you may be asking, what is All Things MSP? We are a community, first and foremost, of MSPs and people around the MSP industry, vendors, subject matter experts, all that kind of stuff, and we're talking about the non-technical side of being an MSP. Now, most of our activity happens in our Facebook group. That's the platform that we've been on the longest. You can join us there at facebook.com/groups/all things MSP. There's about 6,000 members in the group, and somebody is there waiting to talk to you. And we also, if you don't do Facebook, we have a LinkedIn company page. So you can go to linkedin.com/company/all things MSP. Now, last but not least, we also have a YouTube channel. So you can head on over there. This is where you can probably get the best experience watching the live stream because it allows us to interact better through the comments there. But also, we publish a weekly podcast there as well, in addition to publishing it to all of your favorite podcast platforms. But we also post other pieces of content as well. So make sure you go there, you like, you subscribe, you do all the things to make sure you get notified so that you'll know when we post new podcasts, as well as we're doing a new live stream. Now, the live stream is typically every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We try not to miss it, but sometimes life happens. Okay, we got about 19 seconds left before we start the show. We'll see you there. The views and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of its participants and do not reflect the views and opinions of any employer, MSP, sponsor, advertiser, or vendor. Hey there, All Things MSP crew. Welcome back to another All Things MSP Live. We have a great show for you tonight. We're going to have some just great content. I think most of you probably know, if you've watched this show for any time or caught the podcast a lot, that I am very much into productivity, time management, those kinds of things. And basically what I've built up for myself is more or less a homegrown productivity system that I've just iterated with over time. But tonight I have somebody who is a real expert. We have the time boss, Andrew Hartman, with us tonight, and we're going to be talking about your personal productivity and how to create or change that overwhelm into overdrive and really help you propel your business forward. But before we get started with that, of course, we have sponsors. Our first sponsor tonight is Easy DMARC, and Easy DMARC is the best way to add DMARC management and monitoring to your MSP services. Protect your clients from phishing, spoofing, and impersonation while boosting their trust in your solutions. Easy DMARC makes email security simple, effective, and hassle-free. Visit atmsp.link/Easy DMARC to learn more and start offering DMARC as a service today. And then we also, tonight we have a special kind of thing. We have a brand new premier sponsor tonight. Our second sponsor tonight is Helped. They're a brand new premier sponsor of All Things MSP, so we want to thank them for becoming a brand new sponsor. If you're not familiar with Helped, Helped makes it easier for MSPs to deliver exceptional IT support with on-demand services and a network of reliable technicians. Helped helps you expand your service offerings without adding overhead. They're fast, flexible, and built for MSPs. Visit atmsp.link/helped and see how they can help your business thrive. All right. Now, I do want to mention that our friend Uncle Marv has his show coming up tonight at 8 o'clock. He's doing a second segment on cyber incidents, so probably a good thing for every MSP to check out, talking about how to deal with cyber incidents. And of course, we love Uncle Marv here at All Things MSP and the podcast and live stream that he does as well. Okay, one plug for us, All Things MSP, our 2025 sponsorship prospectus is available. So if you are a vendor in the space and you're interested in sponsoring All Things MSP and producing extra content to provide for the audience. We are opening up their 2025 sponsorships, and we have different plans to meet different needs. And if you need something custom, we can do that too. So go ahead and send me an email, eric@allthingsmsp.com, and I will send you out that prospectus. All right. So if everybody's ready to get ready to be more productive, let me bring to the stage Mr. Andrew Hartman, the time boss. And of course, let me get him up here, bigger than just, there we go.
There we go.
Sorry, Andrew.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Eric. Great to be here.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for doing this, because this is something, I don't care what you're doing, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a technician, whatever your role is in this business, productivity is vital to not only getting lots of things done, but also getting the right things done.
Right.
And exactly, I'm so happy that you're here tonight to, help us along with that journey.
Awesome. I love it. I'm excited to be here. I know you know this, but I'm a fractional COO as part of what I do for an MSP. So I just get the reality of this world. I get all the things that are coming at MSPs and all the things that they're trying to get done. So hopefully we can have a great conversation.
Awesome. So I know you have some slides tonight. Are you ready for me to go ahead and bring those up?
Yeah, let's go and jump in. That's awesome.
Right.
Yeah, tonight the conversation we're having is why you're overwhelmed and what to do about it. So I am moving from the default position that you're likely overwhelmed. And my guess is you may be getting the results that you want, but you are struggling. It is costing you more than you want it to cost. Maybe it's with your relationships. Maybe it's with your sleep. Maybe it's with your health. Whatever it is, overwhelm is not the life that you want to be living. And I know this because, as I mentioned, I'm a fractional COO of an MSP, Time Boss. My company, we're a training and development company. We work with multiple MSPs where we are talking to the senior leadership teams of these organizations and just understand that there's so much more to do than you have time to do it. I also know because I've trained hundreds of leaders, dozens of teams in the last couple of years, and it's just standard. There's a lot of people that are overwhelmed, and the research proves it. So stress and burnout is absolutely an epidemic. 75% of workers, so whether you are the owner of your MSP or you're a senior leader, 75% of workers report feeling burnt out in the last year, and 40% of business owners. So this is everybody. It's not just the business owners or just the employees or whoever, it's all of us. Even worse, 3 out of 5 people feel overwhelmed by their to-do list. So the very tools that we are trying to use to help us prioritize, get it out of our head, whatever we've been told to do, is actually causing us to feel overwhelmed. So how do we get this way? Like, the question I always kept asking is how did it get to this point, right? And there's a really interesting reason why, and it's this. Stress absolutely serves us to a point. So we've accepted overwhelm as part of the equation, and it serves us to a point. There was a study done in the 1900s called Yerkes-Dodson, and it compared performance and stress. It looked to correlate these two things. How does stress impact our performance? You see the word stress here. I want you to think of active caring, right? Not distress necessarily, but active caring. I care about it. I want something to happen. We're all here watching this video right now because we showed up on time because we cared. We wanted to see the topic. We wanted to show up for the conversation, whatever. So stress impacts performance. And it's probably pretty obvious how it starts. As you begin to feel stress, you begin to take action. Now, people can certainly get caught in a low gear where they say, whoa, I don't want to feel any stress. No stress 2025. I'm committed to self-care, committed to my mental health. I'm not going to feel any stress. And that's fine. But I think, as we all know, if you stay there, you are going to operate in a low gear and you are not going to get the results that you want. And if you're a leader of an MSP, you want to get results. You're in this for a reason. You're trying to get results. Now, as this continues, as you might imagine, there's a spot where you will experience optimal stress and you will get the best results possible. In a correlated study to this, they actually use the term eustress, EUSTRESS, which literally means positive stress, right? The stress I feel to show up on time for a date with my wife because I know it's going to be an amazing experience. Good, there is actually positive stress, actively caring stress. Now, as you might imagine, most of us slide past that point into overwhelm, right? And this is where most of us live. 80% of people, I think, are living it over on this side of the gutter. And we get overwhelmed, and it's anxiety, and it goes from stress to distress, right? Overwhelm, And none of us wants to live this way. And there's really two reasons why this is bad, right? One, no one wants to live this way. No one wants to live with overwhelm. No one wants to live with stress and anxiety. But two, it actually changes the way that you work when you feel overwhelmed. And here's why. The average person, as I mentioned, has 121 items on their to-do list all the time. So as you check items off, they just keep reappearing, right? They're like rabbits. They just multiply. So if that's the case, then when you feel overwhelmed, you go into eye of the tiger mode. You just try to check items off your list. And what happens? You become less creative. I'm not going to look for the best solution. I'm going to look for the nearest on-hand solution just to get this done, because I just got to get it off my plate because there's 120 items right behind it. I'm not going to collaborate. I don't have time to ask other people for help. I don't have time to ask for their opinion. I just got to get this done. So we become much more deliberate in our actions. We are getting work done, but it will perform worse for us because we're not creative. We're not collaborative. We often will stop delegating. There's not enough time. That person's not going to do it as well as me. I just feel overwhelmed. I just need to get this done. I'm just going to knock it out. It's faster if I do it myself. All these things we tell ourselves, and we only perpetuate the overwhelm, and our results get worse. So what I want to make a case for tonight is that there is an objectively truthful reason why you should consider lowering the amount of overwhelm you feel, the amount of stress and anxiety you feel, in order to get the best results possible. You can both have the experience of life that you want, and you can do it without overwhelm to get the results that you want. Both of those things can be true. Overwhelm obviously has a big cost on us. I've just made a case for your results, right? Truly, it will impact both your results, and if this is going on with those within your team, you're going to experience less results from them. Particularly if they burn out, you're really going to feel the burn from what might happen there. To your health, right? So I mentioned a little bit about my story. I actually lost my sense of smell from stress. I was so stressed out. So I know this very personally from earlier in my career, and I can share a little bit more about that later. But it could be hypertension, it could be headaches, it could be irritable bowel syndrome. There are stomach viruses that are only exacerbated by stress. You might have any of these things. Your sleep may be terrible, and it might be impacting your relationships, right? It's costing you more than you want to cost. You're missing more dinners than you want to miss. You're physically present at home, but you're emotionally somewhere else. You're not actually showing up. So overwhelm has a real tax on us. And as I mentioned, I was that person, right? So this was 14 years ago. You can tell the passing of time by two very specific things. One is the hair on my head, which I used to have. And two is the Windows XP logo in the upper right-hand corner there. So long time ago. This is my son, Luke. He was 14, firstborn son in our family on either side. Both sets of grandparents were at the hospital. Really happy time, joyous time. My daughter here, Emma on the right, she brought her brother a little stuffed animal. It was a possum, and gave it to her baby brother. And we like to joke that it was the last act of kindness she has ever shown to her brother in her life. If you have siblings, or if you have children, you probably know what I'm talking about. So happy time. Father-in-law was a portrait photographer. He took this picture, literally set up his portrait studio in the delivery room, or this hospital room we were in. You can imagine how excited the nurses were about that. But you see a lot of smiling faces in this picture. What you don't see is I was utterly overwhelmed. My wife, Kelly, went into labor on a Tuesday afternoon. I left the office hot, inbox full of email, 12 different clients that I was responsible for that all had needs of me, and I didn't know when I was going to get those needs met. I had no systems to support them with me being gone. Had paternity leave, could have taken a week or two off, and I went back to work after 2 days just because I was stressed. And I missed out on things I wish I wouldn't have missed out on. And my guess is if you're on this call and you're overwhelmed, you may be feeling that as well. Or maybe people say, hey, I don't like it when you get stressed out. I don't like who you become. And that's what we want to talk about today. I want to help you. As I mentioned, it got so bad in this season, I lost my sense of smell. And not because I was bad at my job. I was actually really good at my job. It's because I cared and I wanted to deliver exceptional results. I just didn't know how to deliver exceptional results without getting overwhelmed. I thought it was part of the equation. And I learned through this process that it was not. So we survived. This is my family now. You can see Kelly there on the left. She's my business partner in this. My son, Luke, daughter, Emma. We made it past the fire. As I mentioned, what I decided was I have to figure out how to build a system where I can get the results I want and do it without overwhelm. That's what Time Boss provides. That's what we teach. And that's what we're going to learn today. What you're going to see is road tested over the past 8 years, both as a COO of early stage companies, now a fractional COO of an MSP. I've been a franchise owner, multi-unit franchise owner. The same rules work. I train this with hundreds of leaders, dozens of companies. The same rules work. So I want to encourage you to lean in with what we're going to talk about today. Question I want you to consider is, what do you wish was different in your relationship with time? If you're in the chat, feel free to drop it in the chat. But what do you wish was different in your relationship with time? Maybe you want more personal freedom related, separate from your work. Maybe you want more financial freedom. Maybe you want your business to grow. Maybe you want more career growth. Maybe you want contribution to something significant outside of your work. What is it that you are not getting from your relationship with time, the way that you are currently operating it? I want to give you a second to think about that.
So, Andrew, while we're giving people a second to answer that question in the chat, we do have a couple of comments in the chat that I think we should probably discuss. Keith Nelson says, and you know, I know Keith, he's being very polite here. He's saying, my intent is not to insult anyone, because we understand that stress, overwhelm, you know, it's a thing. But a lot of time, the majority of stress is self-inflicted. And I think you kind of said that in a way when you said that it's because we care so much.
Absolutely.
But we have to find that balance. And then he says, I see in our business the lust of so many in our field to position themselves as superheroes. And I absolutely think that's true. I know that I fell into that trap. And that when I read, I think it was the Story Brand, where it talks about making the customer the hero, and you the guide. That really is what switched it for me in terms of that perspective.
I love that thought. Yeah, and oh, go ahead if you want to. If there's more.
Well, and Keith also followed that up with, we should balance our life by managing expectations, communication, and charging enough to do the job correctly at a reasonable pace with sufficient labor and support. And I think that's also a lot of times where MSPs get themselves into trouble, is because they don't charge enough to properly resource so that they can do the job correctly and, like Keith says, at a reasonable pace.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, Keith's exactly right. I love pace. We're going to use that word in particular. And the thing, the analogy I would give, you know, Keith's comment on being a superhero, we have to think about it like oxygen mask on, right? When those drop, what do they tell us? Put yours on first so you can help the person next to you. And so when we go superhero mode and we just throw it on our shoulders and we're burning ourselves to a crisp, we're actually becoming worse teammates, worse bosses, worse vendors and partners for our clients, because we're not running at a sustainable pace. I love Keith's language there. I completely agree.
Yep. And then he followed it up with this statement. It says, you'll be amazed when you share your dedication to family and community, are more impressed with your commitment to family over business. So yeah, I think that's true. When a lot of people, when you meet them and you're doing that hard sell, you know, they're much more impressed if they see that you're a more balanced person.
Right. I completely agree. I love that thought. Yeah, I think he's onto something for sure.
And we've got Degley in the house as well. Welcome, Degley. He says, one of the things I've implemented as part of the company culture is that everyone is in charge of their daily schedules, both business and personal.
That's great.
And he says that in turn has decreased stress and improved work-life balance in the whole company.
I love it. Yeah, the whole concept of time boss is this: we are the boss of our future self. We are fully responsible for our schedules and our plans. So Degley, I think you are right on. I'm fully aligned with you. It is about empowering individuals to make good decisions with the time they have. How do we build simple, repeatable systems where that can happen over and over in the context of our business? I love that. Good stuff. Should we keep moving, Eric?
Sure.
All right. So I think with Keith had a great thought here. I think we can continue digging in. I think one of the challenges that we have is we actually have a pretty fuzzy idea of what's possible in a day. And the average human dramatically overestimates what they can actually get done. And we do this for two really important reasons. One is we do it because of the results that we want, right? We want our business to grow. We want to get the sale, customer satisfaction, whatever the metric is. We can't imagine finishing the day and not getting an item done. So we add it to our to-do list. The other is for relationships. And those could be spouse, coworkers, employees, bosses, clients, whoever. And we feel like I can't imagine getting to the end of the day and not having this done because I don't want to let that person down. The problem is our actual available time is way more like this. We dramatically overestimate. And when we do this, we have two options, right? First of all, there was no world where you were ever going to get more than those 5 things done. And don't get hung up on 5 versus 8. It's not exact like that. It's more for the metaphor. There was never a world where you were ever going to get more than those 5 things done. So you have 2 options for stories that you tell yourself. One story you could tell yourself is, wow, I got 5 really important things done and I'm going to get back at it tomorrow. But the story that most people tell themselves is, man, I didn't get to these 3 items. Ugh, there's not enough time. What if someone finds out? What if someone knew I didn't do those? I'm a failure. Maybe I can't keep up. And we tell ourselves a story that leads to anxiety, right? Where we feel this sense of anxiety around what we're not getting done. And it's all because we set improper expectations for the day. Now, if we take those items, and what do? We take the items that we didn't get done and we shove them into tomorrow and we run the same playbook over again because we're not changing our habits related to time. Our experience of life is a direct function of our habits. And then 2 terrible things happen. One is it will impact the things that we actually keep on our list. And 2, not only will those results get worse, but 2, we finish the day and we do the same thing over again. We overloaded the day again. So we simply feel more anxiety. So not only are we getting worse results, we're doing it in a way where we feel anxious and overwhelmed. And nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. And again, we tell ourselves it's just a season. I just need to get past this project, right? I just need to get past this quarter, this year. I just need to get past Christmas, this show, whatever it is. But the reality is our past self said that, our present self is saying it, and there's a future version of us that's going to say the very exact same thing. You see, our habits are perfectly designed for the results you're getting and your experience of the day. Whatever you feel right now, whatever results you're getting, whatever the scoreboard says, it is a direct function of your habits related to time. And so if we don't change, again, you gotta back out. We just feel the day or the week over and over and over again. You got to zoom out and see over time, you're just going to get much worse results and you risk burnout. And again, burnout is a real risk. If you or your team burns out, you don't go from 105% to 95%, you go from 105 to 50%. And people leave jobs and people take months off because they have to recover from that burnout. Their body literally becomes allergic to stress. So it's a really big deal. So let's turn the corner here. Let's talk about how do we actually get results without overwhelm. Well, when we first get any role or you first open your business, if you're a business owner of an MSP or whatever role you have, you probably went on the grind because you just had to get results because you just had to prove it, right? I got to make payroll. I got to prove it to my new boss. Whatever it is, we go on the grind when we get new opportunities often. And the challenge is that's not sustainable. Keith used that language earlier. I loved it. It's not sustainable. We can't keep it up. And if we get burned bad enough, often what we do is we swing to the other end of the pendulum and we want to feel peace. We're like, no stress 2025, dedicated to self-care, whatever. It'll be sustainable, but you're not going to get results. The only rational way forward, again, the rational way forward that I want to make the argument for you to get the best results possible is this concept of your high sustainable pace, where it's both sustainable and you can get the results you want. Think of it like a marathon. If you're a distance runner, think of it like a marathon. You cannot sprint a marathon. You won't even finish. You're going to burn out. You're going to wash out. You can certainly walk a marathon on the peace side, but you're not going to get the time you want. Every distance runner knows their high sustainable pace because it will allow them to go as fast as possible to get the best results possible. And that is what we need to get to in how we approach our time at work. Really high sustainable pace helps us live up here. The problem is it's not a light switch. It's not a thing that you can just turn on today and have tomorrow. You have to change your habits related to time, and that takes time. That's not something that we can do slowly. So what does that look like with Time Boss? There's a couple things we do here. One, we get really clear on your actual capacity. So by the end of the day today, you're going to have a much greater sense of what your actual capacity is, which is great. And once we know our actual capacity, a couple things happen. One, we will actually prioritize the highest impact tasks. You said it earlier, Eric, say yes to the right things. When we feel like we are infinite, we will say yes to everything because there's no economy there, right? But when we know we are finite human beings, it is so healthy for us to truly believe that about ourselves because it forces us to prioritize the highest impact activities that are going to make a difference for our business. In addition, once we make that priority, we're going to plan for reality. We're going to build in buffer. We're going to look at this very particular today. Buffer that helps us reduce our overwhelm to deal with all the chaos of life that we know is coming at us. So we might as well plan our day knowing that those things are coming. And then again, instead of those items before that would cause us anxiety, make us feel like failures, make us feel like there's not enough time, we're going to do the work to deal with the items that don't fit. And we're going to talk about all kinds of strategies to do that. If you do that, if you make these things your habits, you get progress, right? You will make progress on the highest impact tasks that are going to make the biggest difference for your business, and you're going to get peace. You're going to deal with the reality of your day. You're going to be ready for the chaos that's coming at you, and you're going to deal with all those items that don't fit so they don't become emotional anchors that just take you out of the game. Again, zooming out, you do this long enough and you will find your high sustainable pace. It must become a habit. It must become the way that you operate. So I'll ask a question for you. I just want you to consider this in your heart. If you could get progress and peace, who would benefit? If you get both of those, if both of those come true, who could benefit and how? Consider that for a second. Eric, I don't know if there's any additional comments or questions you want to toss up. Otherwise, we can keep rolling.
Well, I think there was some comment in between Keith and Degley in the chat, but I'll go ahead and answer this and say that it would be everybody around me. Would benefit.
Absolutely.
Not just from the peace part, right? Because I do tend to sometimes be high strung, but also the progress piece, right? Look, I juggle a lot of different plates, right? And I do it to myself. I have fun doing it.
Right.
Does it create overwhelm at times? Absolutely. Have I figured out how to do a lot of the things that you're talking about tonight? Absolutely. Like I have implemented like scheduling buffer time to account for those things that we know in reality are going to pop up in our calendar was a game changer for me.
Yeah,
actually
absolutely.
Scheduling that time on the calendar so that nothing else could creep into it.
Yep. We're going to systematically do that tonight on screen. I think it'll be really helpful for people. That's great.
All right. Let me check here because there's a couple more comments. So Keith says, here, teleprompters. They're great, but they're not so great because the Zoom, you have to go back and forth. Sure. He says, longer life, happier family, greater success since your peace affects your ability to deliver Mercedes service and more time to enjoy a fine cigar. And Keith, yes, we know you love your cigars.
I completely agree with Keith. I mean, we just have to decide, what do we want life to be like? If you're not happy with your experience of life, you've got to change something. Otherwise, your habits are just going to keep perpetuating whatever you're getting. Yeah, I agree with Keith.
Well, and I think one of the things that makes this different than almost every other resource in our life is that it doesn't matter who you are. Time is a limited resource.
Yep.
And you can't make any more of it. So you have to design it properly to make the progress that you want to make on the things that you consider priorities.
Well, and to your metaphor of finiteness, I think most of us treat time like a credit card that we can just swipe, and I'm just going to say yes. I'm just going to say yes. I'm just going to say it. And the reality is it's just like cash. It is finite. There's only so much of it. And the quicker we catch up to that, well, I'll mention later, this concept of reality as our friend, the quicker that we just get comfortable with reality, I think the quicker we can start really getting progress and getting peace on the things that we really care about. Awesome. Should I keep going, Eric? Do you have any more you want to put up? Okay.
Go ahead.
Awesome. We'll keep rolling. So tonight we're going to focus on relieving pressure. We're going to focus on this end of the spectrum. There's not enough time for us, obviously, to get into the entire model, but we want to talk about relieving pressure. You were talking about buffer time, Eric. We're going to look at that. We're going to talk about how do we deal with the items that don't fit. Relieving pressure will move you back into the performance zone, right? I fundamentally believe if you feel less overwhelmed and you change nothing about what you're prioritizing right now, you will get better results simply as a fact of how you go about the work. Now, we absolutely can upgrade what's actually getting to your calendar and what's going to actually move the needle in your world. But tonight alone, just relieving pressure, you can move closer to your highest sustainable pace. So here's my ask of you. I'm going to show you some things that you may not like that may feel really uncomfortable. And you're like, I can't do it that way. So many people have gone before you and gotten great results of this. And so I just encourage you to experiment with it. Let's see what's possible. You don't have to do it forever. Maybe you try it next week and you say, this is terrible. I never want to do it again. That's fine. I just would encourage you to be open today. This has been proven in early stage startup companies, which have short runways, high expectations, no margin for error. It's been proven in scaling MSPs, and I think it'll work in your world as well. So let's jump into it. Eric, do you have any idea what this number is?
I don't.
I love it. I didn't know until about a year ago. It is the number of hours in a week. And this is all hours in a week. So this isn't waking hours. So it's even less when we consider sleep, right? Or we consider taking care of ourselves or eating meals or working out or whatever the things that we do. But to your point earlier, it is just a reminder that we are so finite. We are so limited. There's only so much of us to go around. The reframe I want us all to consider tonight is that it's not 168 hours. It is 168 choices. We are in the business of making choices. Our life is a direct function of the choices we make with the 168 hours that are before us. And what does that look like? I mean, I'll just flash over to the calendar. Here are your choices. Pull up your calendar right now. It is 168 choices. Yes, there's sleep, but that's even a choice. How much should I sleep? A lot of people would say that the more sleep you get, the better you're going to feel. So that's a choice, right? It has an impact on our experience. And so tonight, I want you to take deep ownership of these choices and start to make decisions about how am I actually going to spend that time. So we're going to start, and we're going to talk about that buffer time that Eric was talking about. So here's how this looks. Your calendar may look something like this. You might have personal items on it. You might have meetings you have to do, one-on-ones, team meetings, sales meetings, prepping meetings, whatever. You likely have lots of items on your calendar. You might even have a million more meetings than this. That's fine. The thing I want you to recognize is that you are choosing every single one of them. You will get the life that you choose or the life that you tolerate. Either way, it's your choice. It is ultimately on you. So let's start with, how do we deal with, pardon me one second. Jump back quick. Big idea I want to give you is that the chaos is here to stay. And what do I mean when I say chaos? I mean these things. It's what Eric said earlier. It is, I call them the predictable unpredictables. I don't know how I'm going to get interrupted tomorrow, but I guarantee you I'm going to get interrupted tomorrow. I'm going to have a meeting that runs long. I'm going to have urgent client requests. There might be a technical outage, a plumbing issue. My kids might get sick. A system might break. There's going to be emails and phone calls. I don't know how many, but there's going to be some, right? I might underestimate a task. You can see all the things here. When I started this journey, when I was so overwhelmed 14 years ago, my first move was, I got to get rid of the chaos. I got to make the chaos stop. And what I learned very quickly is that it's impossible. I literally would write on a piece of paper in front of my desk every day, the chaos is here to stay, just because I had to get comfortable with it. And I had to start looking for solutions to contend with it. So here's the problem with chaos. When the chaos comes, we allow it to interrupt us. And there's a very important reason why we allow it to interrupt us. And it's this: we are afraid. We are so afraid, right? We are afraid of, if this interruption comes and I don't do something about it right now, I'm going to forget about it. I'm going to let that person down. I'm not going to get that result I want. That client's going to be mad at me. We're going to lose that client. We're not going to get that deal. That employee might be frustrated, whatever. We have all kinds of fear that causes us to be interrupted. The challenge is that interruption time is costing us 20 to 40% of our productive time. 20 to 40%. This was a study done by Microsoft post-COVID. And the reason being is this: it's called comeback time. It is the amount of time it takes me to come back to a task. Think of it like this. If you're typing an email, let's say I'm writing an email to Eric and I'm halfway through the email and somebody calls me on the phone and I take the call and I talk to them for a little bit and I solve their problem. When I come back to that email, I can't simply start typing the next word and keep going, right? I'm going to have to go reread that email to boot up the context again of whatever I was working on before I can continue. And that's just an email. Think if you're working in an Excel spreadsheet across multiple formulas, or you're doing a complicated solution for a client that you're trying to work through. Our interruptions literally is killing our ability to focus. And again, it's because of fear. We don't know how to say no. And we're afraid if we say no, it's not going to get done. So let's talk about how we solve for that as we look at our calendar. So what we need to do is we need to help your day match reality. Fantasy is blocking 100% of your time. Most people, when they get into productivity, they'll start blocking their time. And like Eric said, it was a game changer for him when he went away from this. But I was the same. I wanted to block every single minute. I wanted to control everything. I cannot. Reality is blocking 60 to 80% of your time. So let me show you what this looks like. If we're looking at our calendar, Your first move is simply to decide how much you're going to work. And truly, it's up to you. Maybe you have stakeholders in your life where you have some commitment of it's 40 hours or 50 hours or 60 hours. It really doesn't matter. When I showed you that study earlier of performance versus stress, what you'll notice is hours was not on there. So hours is not correlated to overwhelm. It's not correlated to overwhelm. So it simply comes down to you deciding. For you being in agreement with yourself that it's the amount of time you want to work and that it works with the stakeholders in your life, with your spouse, with your kids, with your team. When you're in harmony with yourself and when you're in harmony with your stakeholders, you will feel less overwhelmed. So let's just pick. Let's say I'm going to work 8 to 5. I'm going to choose that every day. I'm going to represent that here on my calendar. Whoops, on my calendar. Renew work. I'm going to represent it just so we can see it. You don't have to do it just like this, but I just want to represent it so I can see it. What you'll notice right off the bat when I represent that is I already have less time than I think, right? I already have time going to an analytics review and lunch, right? So I already don't have a full 8-hour day. That's not how this works. But what we need to do, remember what I said, is you need to only block 60 to 80% of your week, which means you are leaving 20 to 40% of your week open for whirlwind. Or excuse me, for buffer. In my program, we call it whirlwind. We'll call it buffer tonight. So for buffer. So what does that look like? You literally need to architect your day with that buffer time. So I might put 2 hours at the end of my day, buffer time. And I might say, you know what? I'm going to show up in the morning. I'm going to knock out a task for an hour, and then I'm going to do some buffer time. And then I'm going to knock out a task for another hour, and then I'm going to do some more buffer time. Again, what you're doing is you are simply architecting your day for reality. Unexpected things are going to happen. Emails are going to come in. Calls are going to happen. Meetings are going to run long. Stuff's going to break. Your kids are going to need help. Your spouse is going to call on the phone. Stuff's going to happen. You just have to prepare for that chaos. Now, here's the thing where people often object to this. They think, I have so much to do already. There's no way I can have buffer time. I totally get it. And that's why you're working late in the evening and you're skipping workouts and you're not happy because you're not planning for reality on the front end. You're starting your week overloaded. When you add buffer, you work your way up to your capacity. Here's the thing about buffer as well. You will not need it every day. There will be days where it will absolutely save your bacon. You absolutely need it, but you won't need it every day. And if you hit buffer time and you don't need to use it, it's up to you. You are the time boss of your future self. What do you want to do? Do you want to go for a walk? Do you want to go get a snack? Do you want to grab a priority from tomorrow and pull it into today? And for the first time in your life, feel like you're actually ahead of schedule instead of behind schedule? Again, buffer is a magical tool to help you reduce your overwhelm. And I can't impress upon you enough to get it to your calendar. We'll take a look later how that actually works. But Eric, would love your comments on buffer. I know that's been a big one for you. What's been significant for you with buffer?
Well, my first impression when I heard of the concept was that's silly. Right?
Exactly.
I already schedule time at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day to, do emails and catch up on the little administrative stuff. Why do I need to actually schedule that time in the middle of my day to make sure that I have empty time? But it really is, we can say with certainty that almost every day there are going to be priorities that pop up because they're urgent to somebody else and they are important to us. We're not talking about urgent and not important things. We're talking about urgent and important. I forget what quadrant that is.
Upper right.
Yeah. And, it really, I did not think it was going to work. And I tried it for a week and I was amazed at how much it kept me on pace. And I think that's the key word for tonight is pace. And that's really one of the things that I wanted to get out of this tonight myself is how do I find that sustainable pace?
Right. That's exactly right. And I think buffer is so critical. So now, and again, a phrase I mentioned earlier is just this idea that reality is our friend. And I think we just have to come to terms with there's only so much time. So let's look back at our calendar here. There's only so much time. So I have added buffer. What this means, if I am looking at Monday, I have 3 1-hour slots where I can do anything. And that is it. That's it. So let's say I'm in a hiring process right now and I need to write a job description for a role I'm hiring. And I add that inscription for a job. And let's say once I do that, I need to get feedback. I don't know why Outlook is hating on me today. What is happening here? Okay, here we go, Outlook. So I need to get feedback from team. I need to do that. And I'm gonna add that to my calendar. I'm gonna time block and add that right here. And let's say I'm responsible for some sales calls. So I need to make some sales calls. And actually I probably need to do that for the other hour as well, because I need to make a lot of sales calls. Let's say I add that. That's it. So if I'm a time blocker, I don't get to block over the buffer time, or I shouldn't, right? To Eric's point about pace, this is how I get pace. I'm trying to be as realistic as I can about what I can get done on Monday. Because remember, if I set realistic items and I have buffer to deal with the items that don't fit, I'm going to operate at a pace where I am going to literally bring my best work to the things that I prioritize that day. Now, the obvious implication, I feel your pushback. Again, I've led this workshop enough to know that this is where people feel tremendous resistance, because they say, you don't understand. There are all these things that I have to get done on Monday. There's no way I can get to all of them. What you just said is true. You can't get to all of them. So you are operating on hope as a strategy. What we're trying to do here is to help you catch up to reality of what's actually possible. Again, you chose how much time you wanted to work. I didn't say how much time you wanted to work. I simply suggested that you added in 20 to 40% buffer time, and then you can block in time the rest of the day, whatever your priorities are. And again, we don't have enough time today. The Time Boss framework teaches you how to get the right things to your calendar, but let's assume you know what your priorities are and you block them in. And again, I know your objection. There's just not enough time. Let's talk about how we deal with that. So the big idea I want to give you is you want to do one thing at a time. That's actually what you want. So if we go back to your calendar, when you show up on Monday, you just want to write the job description. That's all you want to do. Because if you can be fully present to that task, you will have the highest impact on making that task happen. The problem is, while we're doing one thing at a time, we are feeling the weight of all the things that don't fit. Again, they are emotional anchors dragging us out of the present moment. Oh, I got to get to that thing. I got to get to that thing. I got to get to that thing. And if we've set our expectations inappropriately, and there's no way we're ever going to get to everything on our list, then again, those simply become emotional anchors that drag us down. So what is the rational response here, right? It's not hope. It's doing something with them, resourcing those things so that they don't become emotional anchors for us. And how do we do that? We have a bunch of strategies. One, can you defer it? If it is not urgent and important, has to happen right now, right? It's a good idea. You're excited about the idea. Somebody asked you for it. But if it could wait a week, let it wait a week. Take a vacation from that task. One of the key tenets of the Time Boss weekly framework is a weekly planning meeting. And when you run that weekly planning meeting, if you're trying to plan out your week, if you can defer it a week, just do it. Then you don't have to worry about it. You're literally taking a vacation from it, and you don't have to sweat it out. So that is always an option. Can you just defer it and push it out? Two, can you delegate it? This is where a lot of MSP leaders in particular get into trouble, because for two reasons. One, they don't feel like they have time to delegate. And two, they don't think someone will do it as well as them, right? So let's talk about that. If you have anything on your list that someone else can do 70% as well as you, you should delegate it. That could be a recurring task. That could be a project. That could be part of a project. 70%. If someone can do it 70% as well as you, you need to delegate it. Just get it off your list. And I hear your resistance. They're not going to do it as well as me. Let me explain to you how you get there. There's a process called 10-80-10. This is a John Maxwell, the godfather of leadership's principle. Take 10% of the time it would have taken you to do that task and write up clear requirements and direction. So that's the 10. 80% of the task is then done by the person that you delegate to. So they're literally taking 80% of that task. If that's a 10-hour task, that's 8 hours of your week that you have given up and you've given to them, right? So 10, 80, and then 10 on the back end is where you come back and you check the results and you make sure you got what you wanted and you make sure it matches the requirements and you coach that person up for wherever they missed to help them understand how next time they can do it even better. So not only are you getting back 80% of the time that you would have taken to do that task, but you are coaching up your team. You're literally upskilling your team by helping them do it the way that you would do it. So it's a powerful tool. I would highly recommend you take that 10-80-10. Remember that 70% as well as you delegate it, use that 10-80-10 rule. Can you digitize it? We are in the era of AI. I just saw something on Twitter today that scared me to death about what AIs can do now, right? I mean, every week it's getting better and better. At a minimum, toss it. Do you have a task that you're still doing by hand that you could toss it to the AI to digitize? I write a job description on my calendar. 100% I should start with an AI. I still have to curate and edit it, right? An adult is still on duty. A human is still on duty. Think of it like delegating. I'm delegating this to the AI. It's giving me some output back, and I am curating it to make sure that it's right. But 100%, you can eliminate time by doing that. Can you downsize it? There's a principle called Parkinson's law that says a task will fill the time that you give it, which means if you say it's going to take 8 hours, you're going to take 8 hours on it. If you say it's going to take 4 hours, you're going to take 4 hours on it. We just inflate into whatever that expectation is we set. So there may be things on your plate where you may be doing 1 hour one-on-ones once a week with your team. That is a lot, right? Could you downsize it? I'm going to do it 30 minutes and I'm going to do every other week. Can I get the same value by downsizing? That is a phenomenal way to create time in your schedule and allow you to get more things done that you need to get done. Can you delete it? We are a garbage collector for tasks. We will collect things all day long because we care about relationships. Somebody asked us, so we put it on our list and we keep writing it on that yellow pad of paper and flipping it over and keep writing it and keep writing it. Sometimes we just need to delete those things. Or go to the person and even ask if it's still relevant. They probably forgot they assigned it to you. Or go to them and say, I'm so sorry. With the current priorities I have, I'm not able to get that done. Sometimes just deleting things reduces pressure because it's less things that we have to think about. Last thing, nobody likes this, but if you cannot, with your time, so let's go back to our Monday. If it comes down to it, when push comes to shove, you just have to get things done. Sometimes you just have to decide to do it. But here's the power of this. If you do this in a weekly planning meeting, in a sober moment, I'm suggesting you do this when you plan, not at 5 p.m. when you realize, I'm working late again, but get ahead of it. Look at your calendar, be like, you know what? I'm going to have to put in 2 hours more on Monday than I'd like to. Here's what I recommend you do. 1, figure out when you're going to do it. Just go to your calendar and map it in. Literally set your expectation like an appointment. Maybe I say, my son's at basketball practice on Monday night. I'm going to do an additional task while he's at basketball practice on Monday night. And I'm going to, what I'd also recommend is talk to the stakeholders in your life. You might have a spouse. I might say to my wife, Kelly, hey, honey, I know I was hoping to be done by 5. It looks like I'm going to need 2 extra hours. When might that work for you? Is there a life-giving slot on Monday night where that might work for you? Yeah, you know what? If you took care of that after the kids went to bed, that'd be great. Great, I'll do that. I'll come home, have dinner, kids go to bed, I'll open up my laptop, I'll knock out that task. Again, what you're doing when you get ahead of it like this is you're changing the story. Time is no longer happening to you. You are the time boss. You are with agency deciding when you're going to make that thing happen. And it dramatically changes our experience of work. Here's how this looks. Here's how this plays out. One of 2 things can happen. You have your available time and you have the things that don't fit. If you just let this roll, if you let these things sit on top of you, your story is going to be that you're going to feel like you're going crazy, that you're burning out, that you're cooking hotter than you want to cook. If instead you do the work to deal with the items that don't fit, you might delegate, you might defer. You'll notice you might actually increase the amount of time you're working. If you choose it in your planning process, it will change your story and it will change your experience of work, and that will dramatically decrease your overwhelm. So Eric, I want to pause here. I want to respect time. I'd love to show what a Monday looks like. I've got a little bit more there. But if there's questions or comments, anything you've got, I'd love to stop and chat about it.
Well, we do have some comments, and I think, we'll probably some of these bear, talking about a little bit. Let me.
Yes.
Hold on.
Sorry, I pre-read Keith's comment.
So one huge issue with buffer is the incoming, unscheduled phone calls, texts, and emails. So part of a buffer would be having the correct support staff and process to defer emergencies of others. And I think this kind of falls into that delegation bucket, right? It's almost
100%.
like pre-delegation.
Yep. The language I use is shielding. So you have to shield your priorities. And we can do that in a variety of ways. One, we can have, an admin staff that just keeps things from getting to us and defers those emergencies. We can shield our priorities by just shutting our door, physically shutting our door and letting people know we're busy. We can shield our priorities by telling our team, hey, I'm going to be offline for the next hour, knocking out a task. If it's absolutely on fire, call me on the phone. Otherwise, I'll see you in an hour. And so we're literally setting expectations of being unavailable. Sometimes we shield our priorities simply by not looking at our phones, texts, or emails. We interrupt ourselves simply by becoming aware of the notification. Even if we're not going to work on it right now, it jams into our frontal lobe and we can't do anything about it. We can't flush it out. If I say, don't think about pink elephants, Eric, good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how email is. As
Just
soon as I
one.
see that, as soon as I see that subject line, I'm off. I'm done. Whatever project I was working on, I'm interrupted now. So I think we have to really shield our priorities to make our priorities happen.
I used to have an orange cone on my desk.
I love that.
Degley says, very interesting. I use time blocking as Eric does, and there's always some time in between time blocks, but I have never thought of actually scheduling buffer time.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and this is especially important if you're in an environment where people can put things on your calendar. Like if you work in a team and they have the ability to schedule meetings on your calendar, that's where buffer time becomes really valuable, because now you've created a block that they cannot schedule over.
Right. Yep. Because they don't care. They're just looking for white space.
And Keith says, I have a floating buffer. If my granddaughter is over, she gets unlimited buffer.
Good man, Keith.
And then he says, besides AI, learning to delegate to your staff, letting go, which is hard, by the way, for a lot of people in our technology mindset. For whatever reason, we do have a big problem compared to the rest of the population in terms of letting go. And it's often a challenge because we can do it better and quicker. And I think that's, it's absolutely true, Keith, but it's just one of those things. If you can delegate for something that, even though it takes them a little bit longer, if you can delegate it, it's going to take you a lot less time for, in terms of your time.
Well,
so that's absolutely true. And I would say that the one thing, I have one hack for the delegation piece. And, you talked about using 10% to write down the operating procedure for doing that task. I think it was the book Buy Back Your Time that I was reading, where they talk about actually videotaping what you're doing. And that's actually even faster than writing down the procedure.
Right.
Because then you can give that to somebody and have them write the procedure.
Right. Yeah, those ones it's harder. The video for recurring tasks is brilliant. Like if it's something you do all the time, absolutely. It's harder for newer projects, or if you're doing something new that you need someone to lead, sometimes that takes a bit more. Yeah, that what Keith said about time, Keith is 100% right that this time it will 100% be faster if Keith just does it. I think with time, we have to extrapolate out and realize, okay, if I just do it again this time, I'm also going to do it again next time, and the time after, and the time after. And so when we can do the math of, man, if I could get this off my plate over the next 52 weeks, I get an hour back each week, and that aggregates to an additional work week plus. It's so significant, but we have to be able to create margin to really delegate well. And the other thing I think that we miss out on, and Dan Martell highlighted this so well in Buy Back Your Time, is we prevent people's growth when we don't delegate. We literally cap them from taking the next step, and things that we think that we don't like, they might love. If we hand them over to them, we might actually enhance their life by delegating well. And, sometimes as leaders, we feel guilty about giving people crappy work. We're like, ugh, I don't like doing that task. I don't want to give that to my team. But you never know. I mean, people might love to do the thing that you don't love to do.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, I want to show how to leverage buffer, because I think it's helpful to see it in action. I think that's where people often fall down when it comes to their day. So let's actually simulate Monday together. And so what I'm going to do is pull up. This is a Monday. I'll zoom in a little bit here so we can see it. That Monday that we just saw. And I'm going to show how to run a Monday. And I want to show an additional tool that I call the daily list. And I know you use a daily list, Eric. You've got it on your index card. I'm going to do a daily list digital, because it's the only thing I can show via our screen sharing technology. But Eric and I both use physical daily lists. So if you are a journaler, if you like index cards, you can use anything like that for your daily list. Your daily list is simply a way that you defend your frontal lobe from interruption. It is the way that you stay present to the things that are in front of you. So let me show you what that looks like. Let's say I blocked out my week, however you block out your week, or let's say you learn more about Time Boss and you start running a Time Boss weekly planning meeting, and you get the right items to your calendar. You're excited about what's on your calendar. You have conviction that's going to move the needle. How do we actually navigate it? So you can see here, I scheduled write a job description for 8 a.m. And the way that you have to think about time blocking is, it is as if the president of the United States invited you to this appointment. And you can choose which president, whether you like the current president or the last president or the one before him. It's up to you. I guess one before him. But we have to treat it with that level of importance. And if we treat it at that level of importance, we actually do this all the time, right? When we show up to meetings, we show up on time. We sit through the entire meeting or through the desired Teams call or Zoom call or whatever. We pay attention. We turn off notifications. So we have the ability to focus. We have to bring that same intensity to the tasks that end up on our calendar. So I'm going to defend writing a job description. I'm going to tell my team, hey, I'm going to be offline the next hour. If you need me, call me on the phone if someone's dying. Otherwise, if no one's dying, I'll be available at 9 to help you. Notice what I did. I just diverted everybody into Whirlwind. Sorry, and a quick reminder, Whirlwind is Buffer in my world. I apologize for the confusion. I diverted everyone into Buffer, and I'm just going to get to work. So I start writing a job description. And let's say Steve on another team calls. He didn't see my notice. He calls me and he says, hey, Andrew, I need to talk to you by end of day today. It's really important. I say, no problem. Can I call you after 3 p.m.? He says, yeah. So I'm just going to go to my daily list and say, call Steve after 3 p.m. And then I'm going to jump right back into my writing a job description. So notice I'm leveraging the daily list to deflect. I'm literally shielding my priority. I'm deflecting into my daily list, knowing that I will have time later. I don't have to be afraid. I'm going to take good care of Steve because I have Buffer ready to help Steve. So I complete the job description, jump into my Whirlwind, and actually I'm going to jump back to, here we go. Oh, excuse me. I'm going to jump to here. There we go. There we go, Buffer. That was the language. I was wondering why it was Whirlwind. Jump into Buffer. And in Buffer, I'm answering email, I'm checking Teams, I'm checking Slack, I'm replying quick to any phone calls. Again, I'm leveraging that Buffer midday to stay current with whatever's going on in my world. You may not be able to be fully checked out. I get that. You have Buffer in the morning just for that. Let's say I'm about to go get feedback from my team on that job description I wrote, and right then a critical system goes down. Nothing I can do about it, right? System's down, my team's responsible. I have got to defer off my plan. Here's the value of Buffer. I can do what I call time trading. I can literally grab that task and grab it down, and I'm going to drag it down into Buffer. And right up here, you don't have to necessarily do this on your calendar. I'm just going to do it for the sake of our example here. I'm going to show that the system went down. Sorry, I'm having some troubles with Outlook tonight. System down. Okay. Oh my goodness. Sorry, Eric. I'm feeling like a noob on. I think it's because I zoomed out a little bit. It's causing some challenges on.
Could be.
Yeah. There we go.
Doesn't know exactly where your cursor is.
Yeah, it might be. So I've got to handle that, right? Nothing I can do. I just got to handle it. I got to take care of that system. Again, I time traded down to get feedback from my team. System gets back up, jump into Buffer. Again, I'm back in email, Teams, phone calls, whatever. I'm just making sure that I'm keeping up with the urgent, important items that I need to keep up on. I'm about to walk into my sales calls or start making my sales calls. And my VP of marketing calls and says, hey, end of day today, I've got to have feedback on these emails. These emails are going out tomorrow. I need your take on it. I say, no problem. I'm going to go to my daily list and I say feedback to VP of marketing by end of day. Oh, typing. And I'm right back in and I'm making my sales calls. Now, what would I have done before? If I didn't have Whirlwind or Buffer, I would have just pushed out my sales calls and gone and looked at those emails because I would have been afraid I wouldn't get back to her. But now you're creating a system where you can make your priorities happen first, knowing you'll have time later on. And likely you probably architected your day where these tasks are happening when you have the best energy, such as to make sales calls. So it's only prudent for you to leverage your Buffer to divert things into it. So I make my sales calls. I'm about to go to my lunch. I need a lunch. I want a personal lunch. I know that my days go well when I eat a good, healthy lunch at home and I actually don't look at the screen for a while. And right then my partner calls and he's like, hey, I got to get 2 reports from you today. I got to get a sales report for you today. And I got to get an analytics report by end of the week. I say, no problem. Can I get them by end of the day? He's like, yep, let's do it. So I'm going to my daily list and I'm going to do sales report by end of day, analytics report by end of week. So notice what I'm doing here. I'm diverting into my daily list. So I'm staying committed to whatever plan I put together on my list. I'm not letting these things rile me up. I know I've got buffer later. I don't have to be afraid. I can stay committed to the work items, to my personal items. We're good to go. Finish up lunch, jumping into a weekly analytics review. And I get a call from our CTO and he says, hey, we've got an issue with Yahoo email deliverability. I'm like, okay, is that a big deal? He's like, well, we got to get it solved probably by end of next week. I'm like, okay, sounds good. I go to my daily list and I say Yahoo email deliverability by end of next week. Again, you'll notice things that might have sent me sideways, but my daily list is like my short-term memory. It's outsourced short-term memory to handle it. So I handle my analytics review, knock out my sales calls in the afternoon. Remember, we're about to go into buffer time, but I drag down, get feedback from the team. So I'm going to go get feedback from the team. And now I'm into my buffer time. So I'm just going to hop over to my daily list and I'm going to call Steve back and we have a great conversation. We get with him what he needs. I'm going to look at the emails. I handle the emails. They look good. I let the VP of marketing know we're good to go. I pull that sales report and I send it over to my partner. And now I've got these 2 items left and you'll notice they don't have to get done today. So now I might just grab this guy and go to my calendar and just find time later in my week to get that done. And here's the win. I'm going to jump to next week. Here's the win of this. Because I have that buffer built in, I can actually schedule things into my week. Urgent and important items that have to happen this week can use that buffer time like an interweek buffer. It's like an interweek budget for me to spend on things. So I can add that analytics report in tomorrow and then go back to my daily list and I check it off. And then Yahoo email deliverability by end of next week. Again, remember the tool we talked about earlier of deferring. If I'm running a weekly planning process, I'm just going to defer this task. So I might go put this in a backlog or a master to-do list I have, and I can check it off and I don't have to worry about it. So I just ran my day. I got everything out of my head and into the system, right? I was none of that was sitting on my brain, and my daily list protected me in that process. So again, that's how we run our day. So again, our focus today was all about relieving pressure. How do we get realistic buffer? How do we deal with the items that don't fit so they don't become emotional anchors? And then how do we run our day with buffer to make sure that we can stay fully present to the items that are on our calendar? So Eric, I was going to talk a little bit about what else Time Boss does, but if we could pause now if there's any questions or any additional comments that came up.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that have come up. This is probably a longer discussion, and I'd actually love to have this conversation with Keith because, the interaction between your journal and your calendar and everything else. He says, do you connect your time blocking to your journal, a connection to recap your meeting communication notes, your thoughts and expression journals, etc.? I think it's whatever works for you.
Yep. Yeah, so there is scientific research that says that if we write down our priorities, we're much more committed to them. So I do think having a mix between digital tools and a journal is actually really powerful. The power of the digital tools, it helps us understand our capacity. You could very quickly visually see, I only had so much time on Monday. But when I show up on Monday, if I write those items down to my journal, it actually increases my follow through and commitment for whatever reason. It's just the way that our brain interacts with it. We set higher expectations for ourselves, so we're more likely to follow through. So there is something to that. To Keith's question about processing notes, I do think Whirlwind or Buffer, excuse me, I gotta get that language straight. Buffer is the time to do that. Or after every meeting, I always will put in a 15 to 20 minute meeting follow-up task where I'm just processing notes into my calendar. I'm assigning out next actions. I'm getting things to my backlog or into my daily list or whatever I need to do. And so if that's important to you, if you know you need that time for you to be successful, I would actually block it right onto your calendar to make sure it happens.
Awesome. So, Andrew, why don't you go ahead and wrap us up and let us know what else Time Boss does and
Sure.
what MSPs can take advantage of if they want to know more.
Awesome. Yes. So what we do today, we were all about relieving pressure. And again, you will get better results by experiencing less pressure. You'll be more collaborative, more creative. You're more likely to delegate. You're more open in the solutions that you seek. You will get better results. Now the question becomes, how do we make sure that we're prioritizing those highest impact activities? And that is exactly what TimeBoss does. Again, we've worked with multiple MSPs in this last year to do exactly this. I'm a fractional COO at an MSP, so I understand very specifically what you are trying to get done. Here's the results we create in those environments. One, we see over a 30% increase in productivity. People get back 4.25 hours of their week back, meaning they feel like they have more time to make more things happen. And 97% of people that go through this program experience more peace and less overwhelm. So not only do you get better results, you get a better experience of life. Both of those things are absolutely possible. Now, we do that through a trusted framework. I don't want to belabor a lot of times here, but this is what we teach on. We teach the TimeBoss Weekly Framework to help people get those results that we saw. So when you see something like this, really you have three options. One is if you are happy with your results in your current experience, you should not change. If your habits are producing the results that you want and an experience of life you want, don't change. Do nothing. If you want something to change eventually, there's a lot of opportunities for that, right? You can absolutely do it yourself. There's so many free resources available. TimeBoss has 1 million free resources. Go to our website. We've got blogs. We've got downloads. Get whatever you like. Buy Back Your Time. Eric mentioned that earlier. That's a phenomenal book if that's something that you're interested in doing yourself. The challenge for me is when I was sideways on Overwhelm, it took me 10 years to work my way through it, to build a system that would work for me to help me get the results that I want without overwhelm. So obviously, if you want something to change now, TimeBoss can absolutely help. You can do it in 6 weeks or less. We do this. I'll show you in a second a couple different options for that. The primary way we get there is accountability. That you are locking into a system of getting daily reps, making tiny adjustments that will help you rapidly change over a short amount of time. And we guarantee it all with a money back guarantee just because we believe in it. If it doesn't work for you, I don't want your money. But we believe in it that much to get these results that you saw. So a couple ways we do that. One is a digital course, 4-hour digital course. It's got 15 lessons like you can see here, easy to use templates. You get access to the TimeBoss digital community for 1 month for accountability. You'll do a daily check-in in the digital community, you will get specific feedbacks directly from me or others on our TimeBoss team to help you make incremental growth day over day, week over week. We are running a special that will expire at the end of February for the ATMSP community. You can see the coupon code there on the screen. Typically it's $129, but we're offering it for $99. Again, money back guarantee. You have nothing to lose. If you want something to be different, I would encourage you to jump in and make the change. If you want something to change rapidly, then we do have a group coaching option. So in group coaching, we're together synchronously 1 hour a week for 6 weeks. Includes a 30-minute one-on-one coaching call with me. It has all the content that's in the digital course plus advanced strategies. We do assessments for you to understand your impact, unlimited asynchronous support. Just like with the digital course, we do have a discount for this community. You can see the coupon code there on the screen. And this offer also expires February 28th. The next group coaching course is launching the beginning of April. So that's when the next one launches. They do launch quarterly. And that goes you're with 4 to 6 other leaders from all different types of organizations. We do also offer this for companies. And so we will come in, the MSPs I mentioned, one out of Pittsburgh, one out of Orange County, California. We did come in and we worked specifically with their leadership team, fully customized for their environment. So that's certainly an option. Well, feel free to follow up with me if that's something that you're interested in. Just a couple stories of people that went through it. This one here, my productivity shot up 50%. I have more margin control and delight than I did before. By helping me see the time as a resource, it empowered me to work efficiently and take on more high-paying projects. I feel confident and prepared for this next phase of growth. So lots of different options there. But Eric, that's what I have. We can do any additional questions. I know we're running a little bit long on time if we need to wrap as well. Oh, you're muted, Eric.
Thank you. My throat was getting a little dry, and so I had to cough a couple times. So I put myself on mute.
No problem.
Yeah. So usually we try and end close to 8 so that people can go and watch Uncle Marv because we like Uncle Marv. We've had a lot of great comments in the thread tonight, and it's really been just a great time to see this in action. This is stuff that gets talked about all the time. And I think the thing that you really helped with tonight, Andrew, was making it a reality by showing us how it actually works and describing how to incorporate this into your day. So really do appreciate it. And if you guys are interested in checking out more, please check out Time Boss and take advantage of those offers that they were so kindly to provide us.
Awesome.
All right, Andrew, thank you so much for tonight. I really, I got stuff out of this, and I consider myself to be very much a student of productivity. So awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me, Eric. It was an honor. I really appreciate it.
All right. And that's it for this evening. Everybody else, have a great evening, and we will see you next week. Hey, thanks for watching All Things MSP Live. You can reach me, Eric Anthony, at eric@allthingsmsp.com. If you're a guest, if you're a vendor, if you want to sponsor the show, let me know.